Well, welcome. Welcome to Frank Solutions. My name is Doug Weir, and I'm the Executive Director for Student Programs and Services with University of Alberta International, and it's my pleasure to host this session. International Week 2014 launches today. We had a fabulous keynote opening by Alex Steffen, and this session as well proves to continue us on that momentum of looking for frank solutions to global challenges. I hope that you've had a chance to pick up a program guide in the lobby. If not, please do so on your way out. The week is packed with over 60 events. Tonight's panel on improving Aboriginal health will be another not-to-miss event. If you wish to leave your email address at the door, we'd be thrilled to have your feedback on this session and others during International Week. This afternoon, we're going to hear from 4 leading University of Alberta researchers, including nanotechnology scientist Jillian Buriak, political scientist David Kahane, sustainability researcher Naomi Krogman, and obesity expert Ari Sharma. In keeping with this year's International Week theme, they are going to provide their ideas and solutions towards creating a healthier world. Each has been challenged to present their complex ideas and solutions in a short presentation, which will also be followed. Each presenter's presentation will be followed by a short question and answer session. So we will circulate mics in the audience, and we ask you to be quick in putting up your hand to acknowledge that you would like to ask a question. Each of the presenters will chair that for about 10 minutes so that we move through these amazing ideas in our next 2 hours. Our presentations are being filmed and will be made available on the Global Education website. So without any further delay, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Jillian Buriak. Dr. Buriak is a professor in the Department of Chemistry and a principal investigator at the National Institute of Nanotechnology. She specializes in synthetic nanoscience to enable technologies and collaborations related to clean energy, particular solar-powered solutions, new computing architectures, and applications in nanomedicine. She is a fellow of the Royal Society of Canada and will admit that a midlife crisis has cemented her running addiction. Her presentation is entitled Energy for 1 × 9 billion Earthlings. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Buriak.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm hoping that this microphone is working. Doesn't sound like it is, and I have no slides. So there we go. Great. Thank you so much. Sorry, it doesn't sound like the mic is working. Okay, I'll just go from this. I like to wander around, but anyway, so I'll just stay put. I'll stay put. I'm really, really pleased to be here to tell you a little bit about this concept of personalized energy. Energy times what? 1 × 9 billion Earthlings. And this is something that is termed in the energy community worldwide the Sustainocene era. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. Very brief outline. I've got 12 minutes. I'm going to show you how energy underpins all life. I'm going to briefly mention conflicts over energy. This is something that is becoming more common in our civilization. I'm going to briefly talk in 1 slide about climate change. And then I'm going to get to the meat of the matter in about 5 slides. How much energy does humanity really need to be sustainable and to have a secure and healthy environment? And then I'm going to introduce this concept of personalized energy, which is for me a little bit disconcerting that it's not discussed in Canada as much as it is around the world. And so that's my message today. So energy underpins everything that we do, as the energy holds civilization together. So if you have energy, you can access clean water. If you have energy, you can produce food. If you have energy, you can sustain a healthy health industry. Energy generation, energy extraction, these things also require energy. Everything we do requires energy. Transportation. Humans, we consume a lot of energy. And in order to talk about this in a way that makes sense, is I need to introduce a unit, a metric unit called tera. Now, thanks to the computer industry, a lot of us are very familiar with the big metric units. We know what a megabyte is. We know what a gigabyte is. So a mega means 10 to the 6, 1 followed by 6 zeros, megabytes. That's too small, so everyone talks about gigabytes. That's 1 followed by 9 zeros. And you go up another 3 orders of magnitude, and that takes you to a terabyte, in this case, terawatt. So a watt is something you're familiar with when you buy a light bulb. So we're consuming a lot of power at any given time. In fact, about 13 terawatts right now. Any given time of day, we are a massive light bulb. That's a 13 followed by an extra 12 zeros. So a lot of energy. So let's think about about how energy is really important for humanity with respect to avoiding conflicts. So fighting over energy really isn't pretty, and sadly is becoming much more common. When you think about Kuwait, Darfur, the genocide in Darfur is recognized by the United Nations as being a conflict over energy. There is a massive oil field, H13, that sits right in the middle that is owned by CNOOC. The Arctic Ocean, when you look at the world, at the globe from the north, you see all these conflicting lines. Everyone is staking claim because there are massive natural gas fields under there. Iraq, of course, South China Sea. If you look at a map here and you see each nation is represented by color, lots of overlapping claims because there's a big natural gas field. So much, or if not all, of the conflicts that we're engaged in right now worldwide are over energy. This really defines how we're running things, because energy is becoming a scarce resource. So let me talk about climate change. So you can see I'm moving through this talk. So climate change, and so I have an idea for an experiment. This is going to be the biggest experiment that humanity has ever done. So the idea for the experiment is this. Now remember where we live. We live right here, okay? So when you think about Earth, we live in this tiny little layer that sustains all life as we know it. So the experiment is this. Let's go and convert all the carbon in the Earth's crust into CO2, and let's just release it in the atmosphere, and let's see what happens. So this is an experiment that we can do as humans precisely once. And if you are an experimentalist, you know that, and you think about Thomas Edison and all the big experimentalists that you know, basically you tinker with something, you try and make it work, it doesn't work, you chuck it, try it again, and you tailor it, and you push it, and you push it, and you push it. We don't have any leeway here. This is one experiment we can do just once. And frankly, this is an experiment that keeps me awake at night. So if you ever are thinking about, is climate change real, and and I don't know, let's just keep going the way we're going, this should keep you awake at night. Because this is an experiment. This is an experiment on a global scale. We don't know the answer to it, and I don't care whether you are not fully at ease with the 99% of scientists who believe in climate change, who believe that this is real. Just the fact that we don't know if this is real is terrifying. It's very scary. Okay, so how big is the problem with respect to energy? How much energy does humanity actually need? So here, this is going to sound really boring, but some people have done very beautiful work to do a full energy accounting. Basically, it's like a chartered accountant. You go and you look at how much money you've got and how much money that you can spend. And so there's a paper by Nate Lewis and Dan Nacera. Nate Lewis is at Caltech, Dan Nacera is at MIT, called Powering the Planet. And they went through all the energy that we have, all the energy that humanity can access, and how much energy we are going to need. And so here's one of the pieces of data that they used, and this comes from the EIA and the United Nations. So this is primary energy consumption per capita, and this is the GDP per capita. So here you are getting richer, and here you are using more energy. And you can see there's a very obvious trend here, that as countries get richer, on a per capita basis, they consume more energy. Now you might look at this and you say, well, eventually you're gonna reach a point when you get rich enough where your energy kind of plateaus off, kind of scales off. Ooh, that's good, because if everybody comes up this way, eventually it'll all plateau. That's a false promise, because what's happening with the United States is that its manufacturing is being exported overseas, as is all the energy use. So if you are exporting your manufacturing overseas, you're also exporting your energy use. You're giving it to here. The 3.2 billion people on the face of the planet are all down here, and so you know that their standard of living, at least what they want, is, and understandably, is going to follow this trend. And so when you think about where energy consumption is going, it's only going to go up on a global scale. So let's go and think about where this takes us. So what they did is they looked at our future energy needs and they thought about what we access today. So in terms of energy today, so these numbers are from 2000. This is all from the United Nations and the International Energy Agency, but our numbers are almost the same. In fact, there's a terawatt. Here's that unit that I mentioned before. We're consuming about 13 or 14 terawatts of power right now. Where does all this power come from? Well, most of it is coming from what are called legacy fossil fuels, that is oil, gas, and coal. A small amount of it is from biomass. That's not feel-good biofuels. That's actually people scavenging wood and things in order to burn and cook their food. Hydroelectric is a small amount, nuclear, and renewables. So most of it is from oil and gas. And so when you actually go through the calculations, and you can go and look it up in these papers, so I'm not going to go through it, but what you get is kind of like a sad bank account, kind of like my bank account right now. When you look at how much energy we're going to need by 2050, you can see that this is compounding at about a rate of 1.5% per year. Now again, you know from a bank account that's not a lot of money that you're going to accumulate, but this is eventually exponential growth. And so where this is taking us is to about 28 or 30, let's say 30 terawatts of power by 2050. So humanity's energy needs are going to more than double. Now the interesting thing about these calculations is that they took into account the fact that we will adopt unprecedented conservation measures. Let's face it, North America, we're really bad at conservation. So they said, okay, let's even assume that we will really start conserving. This is how much energy we are going to need, looking at world energy consumption rates and their increase. So these numbers are actually very small, they're probably higher. But anyway, let's just assume that's the lowest. Okay, so we need 30 terawatts of power. Where the heck is this going to come from? So let's think about the options that we have available to us as humanity. By 2050, let's not even touch oil and gas. We're not going to go, this argument is not about, oh, solar energy is going to go and replace the oil sands. That's not what this is about. We need so much more energy than just that. Okay, so remember oil and gas is giving us about 10 terawatts. Let's go and think about biomass. A lot of people are saying, let's grow our way out of this energy crisis. This is also a false promise, because when you take 20% of the Earth's surface, that's all the cultivatable land, you stop growing food, you take the most energy efficient crops, you take miscanthus, you take switchgrass, and you convert that all to gas to power transportation. That will give you about 5 to 7 terawatts, or 7 to 10 terawatts, sorry. So you will stop producing food and you will only get another maximum 10 terawatts of power. So you can see biofuels is not a local solution. In fact, it has a lot of ethical problems related to taking food and converting it into gas and oil. I think there's some serious problems there. How about, so we have no more cultivatable land. How about nuclear power? So let's go and build 8,000 new nuclear power plants. These are going to be large nuclear power plants, about 1 gigawatt each. That'll give us about 8 terawatts of power. That means we need to start construction of a new nuclear power plant every 1.6 days. So not only will we have to start construction of a new nuclear power plant every 1.6 days to get us to 2050 so that we can generate 8 terawatts of power, you are going to have to start construction of a new nuclear power plant every single day, forever. Every 1.6 days, because as soon as your nuclear power plant is 50 years old and you have to decommission it, you better have another one sitting right next to it ready to turn on. So you are going to have to start that construction every single 1.6 days forever, simply to generate 8 terawatts. So you can see there's not one single solution yet. Wind. So wind is a fantastic local solution. I'm a huge supporter of wind, but as a global energy solution, it's not, because if you go and put windmills in every class 3, 4, or 5, 5 being the best terrestrial sites around the world, that will give you about 2.1 terawatts of power. Okay, so it's a good local solution, but it's not a global solution. Hydro, just about every single dam that can be dammed for hydroelectric power has been dammed, but you can go and dam them again, like the Peace River, which is going to be dammed for the 3rd time. You'll be able to get about 0.7 terawatts. And so there you go. So let's compare to how much solar energy is hitting terrestrial Earth at any given time, hitting the Earth. Look at this number. This number is orders of magnitude bigger than any of these. Solar energy is massive. It truly is massive. Now, here's a warning for my cheesy little graphic. Woohoo! So, there's a good news solution here. So, let me tell you about the Sutton Principle. I don't know if anyone knows who Willie Sutton is. So, Willie Sutton was this very polite, very nice bank robber who was on the top 10 FBI most wanted list. He was arrested in 1952. So he was called Willie the Actor Sutton. And he was very polite. He never hurt anybody, but he was kind of a celebrity bank robber. When he was finally caught in February 52, this young journalist, reporter, approached him. Mr. Sutton, why do you rob banks? And the answer was, because that's where the money is. And so a lot of people around the world are talking about the Sutton Principle with respect to energy. So where are you going to go? You're going to go where the energy is. And energy, this is a map of what's called, I don't know why it's goofy like this, it's kind of turned blue on me, insolation, sol, not insolation, but sol, S-O-L. So there's a massive finger in southern Alberta and southern Saskatchewan that has incredible solar potential. So this is where the energy is. Let's skip that. Okay, in terms of the context for Alberta, I love this number. Very simple calculation. Take 10% efficiency solar cells. Take all of the reserves, the bituminous sands. I'm not going to call them oil sands. I'm not going to call them tar sands either. I'm going to call them by their scientifically correct term. 170 billion barrels, oil equivalents. That equals 8,500 seconds of sunlight hitting terrestrial Earth. So in 2 hours, we get the same amount of energy hitting our planet at ground level as everything that is stored in the oil sands. It's kind of a sobering statistic when you think about it. We could avoid all of this if we could capture with 10% efficiency solar cells 2 hours of sunlight. Okay, so here's the last thing, the thing that I really want to drive home. The rest of the world is talking about this, for some reason not in Canada. It's the idea of personalized energy. And so the most interesting ideas are actually being implemented now in China, in India, and Africa, in India in particular by the very large multinational called Tata, for instance. And so when you consider landlines and cell phones, much of the world has leapfrogged over the necessity of landlines. The same thing is happening to energy with respect to the grid. Much of the world is leapfrogging the necessity for a grid. So 3 billion people right now live without a grid. They're not like us. They can walk into a room, turn a light switch on, and another 3 billion are going to be added to that by 2050. That's 6 billion people are going to be living off the grid. No one's going to build these people a grid. So it's very interesting. What's happening is the same for energy. So this concept of personalized energy, i.e. making very cheap solar cells, roll-to-roll printing, plastic technologies, make them like newspapers, be able to paint them yourself on walls, turn that into electricity and into liquid fuels directly. So water plus the sun can produce hydrogen, which is hydrogen fuel. And hydrogen fuel is a clean burning fuel. So as long as your hydrogen is coming from water and the sun, it is the cleanest fuel available. This is my last slide. So the idea of personalized energy is not just a joke, this is real. So for instance, Toyota is pushing very hard in this. Here's a Forbes article, hydrogen being generated from wind and solar, being able to implement this with your house in rich countries, developing countries. So this is coming, and it's coming fast, and basically we need to bring this conversation to Canada because the rest of the world is having it, and if we don't talk about it, we're going to be left behind. So I'm really appreciative of the chance to tell you about this, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.